really quickly, she said, I didn't mean to lose so quick. I thought you were saying bye. No worries.
Lauren, our last guest, didn't hear. She thought we were saying goodbye. First of all, should I call you Dr. Lynn or should I call you Dr. Lassiter?
Call me Dr. Lynn because my husband didn't go to medical school. I did. So no matter if you're hyphenated or not, a lot of women have that debate as a professional.
That's right.
Should I be Lynn? Should I be Lynn hyphen Lassiter? Should I be Lynn Lassiter? At the end of the day, you know, you have to put the onus where it's due. And I graduated from Meharry Medical College a few years ago and proud to be here.
Dr. Lynn, I love Dr. Lynn. It's just something about it feels just so inviting. First of all, you have a very warm and welcoming face.
Thank you.
I mean, you're like a triple threat. You know, gorgeous, smart. I mean, you got the marijuana license. Like everybody's knocking on the door right now. Guys, get your notebooks. It's going to be a very interesting segment. If you're just joining us, we're talking with Dr. Lynn, who is an ER doctor. Now, listen. Yes. COVID is still here. If anyone has watched the Democratic convention, is watching the RNC or the Republican convention, you know, the Democrats are talking about it big time. The Republicans are like, talking about it in past tense. As an ER doctor, let's just deal with the elephant in the room. What is the current status? Where are you, in Florida?
I am. I practice in Miami, Florida. Hot city. I know.
Hot, mad Miami. You guys are so hard-headed. I know, listen, New York, we're live from New York.
I mean, if I had a beach a block away from my house, I would be too.
Well, I can't help it. It's hard to help it when it's 90 degrees all the time.
Wasn't that the mentality, Dr. Lynn? Wasn't that the mentality? It was like, it's summertime, I'm on spring break. What virus? I don't care if I'm killing my entire family. Me. Her age group, they didn't care. Talk to us. What's going on? Summer cares.
Great points. Excellent points. You're absolutely right. One thing I will say is that COVID never left. It's not a second wave. This is a continuum. We haven't eradicated it. So it's not like it went away and came back all of a sudden. It never quite left us. It's a continuum and it's spiking in other cities that are more popular. So a lot of people escaped from New York. Remember, Miami is a snowbird state. You know, Florida's a snowbird state. So everybody from the cold weather comes down here for those 5 or 6 months to get away from that weather. So all you did was transplant all my cool climate people down here so they can enjoy the weather, and it increased the population. And of course, we are hard-headed because it's so beautiful outside. The first thing we want to do is get outside, run, walk, exercise, hit the water. You know, it's an escape city. It's a beautiful city. So it's difficult to keep us indoors. I will say that. But as we know now, and if we haven't learned anything in the last 6 months, you can do it all, but do it with mindfulness, do it with kindness, and be thoughtful of your neighbors. Be considerate by wearing your mask, social distance. Just practice all the things that we've been preaching for the last 6 months so we can move forward instead of continue to be stagnant.
I love that you said mindful.
And even in the city, like, it's kind of a ghost town. Like, even all my friends, like, for the summer, like, they're away at their Hampton houses. Like, people just aren't in the city. And normally, like, we'll see, like, a lot of tourists in Times Square and everything.
Yes.
And it's, like, it's so empty. Like, the most people I've seen probably, like, out is normally during, like, dinner time. Like, at restaurants and people just eating. But other than that, like, I haven't really seen, like, any crazy big crowds. Like, the park isn't as crowded as it was before. Like, people genuinely left New York.
Excellent point. To be honest, I'm a New Yorker, so I understand that energy and the infection of New York and being in the city and the excitement. So to see it now being completely dead and not having that same movement that it had before, it's hard. It's super hard. You know, you miss that. That's a part of your hustle going to New York, just walking out the door and you're seeing hundreds of people flood the streets, just trying to catch up, make the cab, hit the subway. So you don't really have that like you used to. So you have to create your own hustle, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So now, how are you guys treating? So in the ER, are you guys still turning away people? Because I know at the height of COVID, you had to have hit certain criteria in order to be admitted or even in order to be seen. Are you still hitting those criteria, or are you sending people away that don't have certain criteria to go home and figure it out?
Excellent point. So I'll tell you what is going on in the present state of today. We're still having criteria for admission. That means you have to be hypoxic, meaning your oxygen saturation has to be below 92% with symptoms of shortness of breath and other comorbidities, right? So that's one of the criteria for admission. And then there's other criteria. Does this person deserve a trial of quote unquote antibiotics to see if that helps, whether that's doxycycline or a C-Pack or steroids or any of the things that have been kind of filtered through the system as additives to see if they could give you some kind of support. There's viral pneumonia that is seen on the chest x-ray of people who have various stages of the diseases. It can be super early, it can be super late. It just all depends. The majority of people we're seeing at this time are coming in for testing. And I will say, whether it's asymptomatic, meaning no symptoms at all, no cough, no fever, no cold, nothing at all, just kind of want to know their status in order to be thoughtful and in order to move appropriately. So a lot of our population is asymptomatic, but the ones we are getting who are symptomatic are hit hard. They know they have it. They know that they're not doing well. They know they need to be admitted. So we see a full spectrum of clients, and we're not turning away anyone. Turning away people initially in the pandemic was to help use the tests that we had, the few tests that we had, and the few labs that we had for appropriate groups of people that needed to be tested, right? Because we were trying to decipher how bad is this disease for this person. Now that we have more mass testing available with testing centers like the Hard Rock Stadium, various parks down here in Broward and Dade County, we have more mass testing available for people. We're able to use our supply more widespread. So we're not as tight with it, you know? So a lot of that preservation early was to preserve it for the population who absolutely needed it. But now we can be more liberal, and that's what we're inviting people to do. Get tested, know your status, like know what's going on with you, and just know that you have to be retested occasionally. It's not
There's
something
so
that is one time and that's it.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
So I don't know if this has been like fake news, because obviously there's a lot of like miscommunication with social media and little reports, but they were saying that like even if you had like the antibodies, that doesn't mean that like you can't get COVID. Like
Right.
you should still take those precautions. So I wasn't sure if that was like the truth, because a lot of people are like, oh, I have antibodies, like I'll be fine.
Right.
But recently a
Good
case
question.
came out that wasn't the case.
Great point, Summer. Thank you so much for sharing that point. So let's talk about antibodies. What are antibodies? Antibodies is something that our body develops to fight an infection that we've already been exposed to, right? So in order to develop antibodies, we have to have had exposure to the disease. The people who are testing positive for antibodies, it's highly recommended that you donate blood so that plasma can be used to help other people who really, truly need it, and also can help with scientific exploration. The antibodies are unsure how long they last for. For certain vaccines that we've gotten in our childhood, like chickenpox and tetanus and those things, we have a window of time that we know how long the antibodies last for. For example, you get your tetanus shot every 10 years because the antibodies are good for 10 years. Because COVID is so new, we know that we can develop antibodies to COVID, but that window of time of how long the antibodies are effective for, we're not sure of yet. Is that 2 weeks? Is that 2 months? Is that 2 years? We haven't had a duration long enough to really say this person's antibodies have expired or their titers are low now and they need to re-up on the vaccine. So you have to kind of keep antibodies in mind and not use it as a false narrative like, I have antibodies, I don't need to do anything anymore, I'm immune. Don't think of it like that at all. It's an extra layer of coverage because at some point you've already been exposed to COVID-19, but it does not mean that you're immune because we don't know how long the antibodies for. You know,
So are people that are not wearing masks, can we assume that some of those people, because I look at people in the street and they're so confident and they're walking around with no mask, and I'm like,
there's also like
is there something I don't know?
A lot of people don't believe that COVID is here, and even after, if there ever is a vaccine for this, we have to remember that there are a lot of people who are anti-vax, a lot of people who don't believe that this is even real in the first place. People think that they're going to get COVID from the vaccine. So
are you seeing, there's two questions. One of our guests was asking, have you seen a spike since Florida reopened, one? And have you been seeing patients who are reoccurring? So I had COVID, I recovered, and now I got it again. Because people think, oh, I've had COVID, I'm over it, I now have the antibodies, I'm good. But now, are you starting to see reoccurring? Because I know that we had a doctor on who said they are starting to see patients who are reoccurring with this virus.
Yes, absolutely. I'll deal with the second question first. So reoccurrence. Remember, viruses mutate. So there's different strains. Even though we have the COVID-19 strain, it mutates several times throughout every time that it jumps into somebody's body, it can come in as a different guise. So remember, just because you've got that one COVID-19 strain, you might be able to get another type. So because you built up antibodies to that one strain doesn't make you immune to the entire genre of COVID, right? Or coronavirus. So that's what viruses do. And that's why every year we come out with different types of influenza vaccines, stronger ones, different ones. We kind of mutated so that we choose the most popular strains to get vaccinated against so that we can try to minimize the spread of the disease. Vaccines in general, I'll tell you, it is the only way that they will be able to completely eradicate it. If you remember back in the day of things like smallpox and stuff like that, we don't hear about those anymore because it's been eradicated through vaccinations. Personally, myself, I'm not going to be in the first trial of vaccines. I'm not going to take it on the first round. And that's just for me personally. If I wouldn't give it to my daughter, I wouldn't recommend it for anybody else. And that's just my personal decision. I need to see a little bit more evidence-based medicine and side effect trials. Give me a 3-year and a 5-year.
I click a lock myself away.
Yeah.
I understand.
Be being like their trial run.
Well, you said you're a mom, and one of the questions also, one of the guests are asking, should kids be in school? Now, I know it's become a political thing, but as a mother and as a doctor who knows, who has scientific facts.
Thank you for the question. I understand that many parents can't keep their children home due to work, due to other family commitments, and just unable to afford. That's a luxury. That's definitely a luxury, and we have to be thought conscious of that. So I don't, blame or shame anyone who has to send their children to school. For me, living in Florida with one of the highest rate of infection at this time, it was not even an option to send my daughter to school. My child will be doing Zoom school through the end of the year, and I will reevaluate in the spring if it's appropriate for my girls to go back.
Well, I'm in online for the rest of high school.
So there you go.
That's already a commitment that I already made because I applied I'm enrolled in a fully online program, not part of like the New York State public school program.
We just went to but you didn't answer the question.
School that was like prepared for online.
You didn't answer the question about has it spiked, and I just want to get that out. It did spike.
Highest cases.
Highest cases. So you did have a spike. Okay.
So remember, spike has to be according with testing, right? So the more people get tested, the higher the number of positive results. So when you say spike, you have to look at them incrementally. And what you really want to look at is infectious rate versus non-infectious or asymptomatic, and death rate. Those are important statistical numbers to look at, because you don't want to say, oh my gosh, now we have, 5,000 cases today. Of those 5,000, were 4,800 asymptomatic, were, 20 had to be hospitalized, were the other 180 in recovery. Like, you have to really take numbers into account when you're dealing with epidemiology and statistics. So don't look at the blanket numbers.
Is an issue, sorry, you want to go?
Yeah, because I'll forget. We both have like ADHD issues. Are you taking cues from the CDC? Like, what are hospitals doing? I'm very curious.
That's such a big question.
Is it a big question?
Mine was smaller.
Okay, ask her a small question, then she can get back. Her brain is bigger.
Mine was just that I know that in the beginning of the pandemic, the issue was like ventilators and how there weren't enough at that time. So now that you've seen a wider variety and there's more like little stations set up, are there enough ventilators for like if this thing spikes like crazy all around the world again?
Great question. Ventilators are hospital specific and state specific, so they have to be secured by the institution. So that's why I remember when Como had a lot of ventilators coming into the city and trying to man ventilators from other countries and other institutions and resources, because you want to make sure you have enough. but
Yeah.
you never know. You never know. It
Yeah.
can go from 5 cases one day to
Well, the governors
1,500
were in
cases.
touch, so they would send where they were communicating, and I know that they were sharing is caring.
Trying to be resourceful.
What was my question again? My question was,
are you communicating with the CDC?
Oh, yeah. Are you taking? Yeah.
Definitely. So my institutions of hierarchy would be CDC for sure. They have been forthright and honest, I feel like, from day one, and that truthfulness and that honesty of what they know and don't know has allowed me to feel a sense of reassurance in the information that they're disseminating. Versus other outlets and media outlets, you have to take what you get and decipher it and research it and do your own stuff. I feel like CDC has been one of the institutions that has been
the news makes
really
it so
alive.
difficult. I mean, someone asked in the questions, do you know where this virus started? Or it's the CDC saying this? Is this a China virus? China? Or is it, I know it drives me nuts. It's COVID-19.
I can't believe you even made
But are
that
they saying that to you guys? Because the news says one thing. This is what this platform is about. We want people on the ground to talk
where
to us.
it originated, because
but maybe they know somewhere.
No, but it's travel too. Like, people are traveling in and out every day, and it may have started in Wuhan, but people from America and Europe are in Wuhan too.
A lot of people
you don't
flooding
know
from
if
Europe.
it originated there.
Have they been able to track this virus to any particular region? How about that?
They have isolated to Wuhan, China, but to say that that is the source of and pinpoint exactly where, there's still a lot of speculation about how it even got into Wuhan, China, So I agree, Summer, you're absolutely right. The traveling has been the method of transport of the virus to countries. So people visiting the endemic areas and traveling to other areas and then not isolating and being around family who then go off to other places. It's just been uncontrollable.
You just confirmed a very big point, because the government is saying we did the right thing. We closed the borders down. We shut down everyone coming from China. It was beyond China at the point when you closed the borders. It was past China.
Way past.
It was all over the country by the time you took action. So,
but it was
selected memory, because it's been 5 months of grief.
It was hard. It was hard to make that call though, because the economy, like everything, depends on travel, people working.
I get that, but
communication.
At the force that this virus was moving, the way people were dropping, you didn't have a choice but to shut it. And a good leader, and I'm not pointing fingers, but
It was late to quarantine from a New York perspective.
You can't just shut down China, is what I'm saying.
It was too late when we quarantined officially. By March, when New York shut down schools, it was too late.
I want to know what New Zealand is doing. Someone just said, whatever New Zealand is doing, that's what we need to be doing. So let's just deal with this question. It's like the elephant in the room. Cannabis.
Okay, I was going to say.
No. I'm moving into the cannabis section because, I saw some questions about, is cannabis, can you have,
someone said cannabis is important, especially during COVID.
Right. Did you see an increase in people needing cannabis? The anxiety levels were up, depression was up. Tell us about the first of all, what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? The pluses of cannabis. That's not the word I'm looking for, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
The advantages of cannabis versus other prescription designer drugs. To me, pharmaceutical drug companies are the biggest drug dealers in the world. But in terms of the natural herb, medicinal, tell us about the benefits.
Definitely. So let me give you a little background about how I fell into the industry. I'm originally from New York, and my heritage is Jamaican and Chinese. So I grew up with Rastafarian culture, home cooking, and cannabis my whole life. So this is natural herb for us. This is not something that needs to be bottled or packaged. Free the plant. That was always the motto of our culture and our island. And anything can be healed with herbs from the plant, right?
Bob Marley said it.
And still lives by it, right? And still, what I saw today in my business, I started down here in 2016 when medicinal marijuana became legalized in Florida. So you can only practice in the state that you work in, right? So I am a medicinal marijuana prescriber in the state of Florida, and I'm licensed here, and I also do emergency medicine. My goal getting into that was I was seeing way too many young people overdose from designer drugs that I just couldn't bring them back from. You know, a lot of people came down here for raves, parties, vacation for the weekend, summer break, and they were just going crazy. And at that time, we were getting a lot of Molly and a lot of different bath salts and just quote unquote designer drugs, which are a compilation of many different things.
What's bath salts?
You mean like the lavender stuff we bathe in?
No, so bath
Like,
salts.
is that like syrup?
No, so that's another one. But bath salts are it's a compilation of drugs that were causing people. I don't know if remember the cases where people were eating each other's face and just kind of attacking each other. That's bath salts. You know, to qualify it, you know, that's bath salts. It's hard to tell you exactly
But like
what's in it
bath
because
salt
you
that
never
you
know
would
what's
soak,
in
that
it.
you would soak in. They were
But you
ingesting it.
smoke it.
Cannibalism, like
Yeah,
each other?
yeah. It was a thing. It's like zombies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So you smoke it, right? So you heat it up and you
It's
smoke
like
it.
crack. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we were having a lot of that. We had a bad strain for a long time, and I was seeing a lot of young people overdose, and it really started to have an emotional toll on me. As an ER physician, I'm always able to compartmentalize and just kind of put my feelings aside and separate work from home. But some things started to linger after work, and it was starting to kind of weigh on me a little bit more heavy than I've usually been able to handle. So, of course, I use cannabis, right? So I use cannabis to decompress for insomnia. And I started to think about it and its properties and how it could help addiction. So I wanted to be able to target a population that really needed it and do a boutique business so I can customize my formulas for people. What I do is I help people get their medical marijuana license, and then I help customize formulas and strains that they need to use. So we have dispensaries that you go to pick up your product, right? Moving on from that, what I've seen during this pandemic is things that were mildly lingering in the population have been magnified because now we've been isolated and have had time to sit with ourselves and to really be introspective about what we're dealing with and what we're struggling with. So small things like before, when you were able to just kind of have a glass of wine and forget about that, you know, hard day or that fear of going to work on Sunday night, like, oh my gosh, I have to get up tomorrow and go to work. What do I wear? What do I eat? Da, da, da. All of that pressure started to magnify because then the fear became, do I even have a job? Am I going to get a paycheck this week? Am I going to be able to afford to eat?
Right.
So those questions went, you know, magnified the depression, as we saw in a lot of people who are isolated, who are typically outgoing people, and various other mental health problems and issues, right? So the spike came when cannabis was deemed an essential industry and it was allowed to be open during the first initial phase when
For
everything was closed.
patients, right?
Yeah.
Or terminally ill.
Terminal illness. Yep.
Legal.
Well, certain states, right?
Because
It's like,
you know how you see those like trucks on the street?
oh,
Yep.
those, I don't know
And
what
so I
those
get
lollipop
confused.
trucks are
I'm like,
about.
I thought it
With
was
the hemp
illegal.
leaves, they're weird.
Yeah.
But just, are there different strands of the marijuana? Because you said for sleep. Are there
Yeah.
different ones for depression? Are there different strands? So are there different strands? Because I've never had a smoke in my life of anything. And so, you know, I'm very naive to this, but I have tons of friends who need, you know, this. Some of them have anxiety. Some of them, I know they give it to children. Some children who have really
seizures and epilepsy
seizures
and
yes.
cancer and yes, absolutely ALS.
But what form are they giving
very-
it? Are they giving it to them in gummies? Are they giving it to them? And do you just distribute it in the smoking form, or is the edibles? Does it all work the same?
It has the same effect. It just doesn't give you like the
Or
side
maybe she'll
effects.
Great questions. Let's kind of start at the top and we'll do a little diagram. So cannabis is a plant. In cannabis, you have multiple strains. The most popular ones are THC, the one that gives you that euphoric high feeling, and CBD, which you hear a lot about right now. And there's also hemp, right? So the things you're seeing on the street are more hemp because they're not regulated as much.
Okay.
THC, above a certain percentage of potency, has to be distributed through a dispensary. It's just like buying any kind of, you know, medication that has been deemed a narcotic and you have to have a certain potency and stuff like that. So if you have to go to a pharmacy to get it, the same way you have to go to a dispensary to get it, right? Because
But
with
you
the
have to have
THC,
your card.
you have to have your card in the state of Florida.
And then who verifies that you need it? Like,
Yeah.
you know, like all the rappers, you know, and rockers and the different, you know, creatives, you know, they're like, I need it. But
I don't know if that's prescribed.
Well,
So
someone like people watching,
are,
like, I'm card carrying. So what do I need to show you or have you examine for you to say, okay, you need, like June, you definitely
so
need
the
a
process
prescription.
has now qualified over 14 medical conditions that qualify for cannabis. And within those conditions, there are variations that your doctor can allow you to have it in. For example, post-traumatic stress disorder is one of the qualified medical conditions by the state of Florida.
Jesus.
But if you're not a post-traumatic stress disorder patient, does that mean your anxiety is not good enough for you to use medical marijuana, or your depression is not good enough, or your nervousness, or your agitation, or your psychosis? Do all of those, you know, even though they're not explicitly listed as a qualifying condition, it's within the family of PTSD.
Someone's
So
like,
that's where we have the gray zone.
Someone's like, this is stressing. This is good information, Summer. Listen, I have teenagers, 16-year-old and 18-year-old, and you know, the information is power. You know, understanding what this drug is. It is still a drug.
It's still a drug. It is not federally legalized.
Yeah, and it's more readily available. You know, it doesn't go on in the home, so if they may be curious, this is a great conversation.
What?
But it's a
So
great
Summer,
conversation
are your
to have,
friends
you know, from
asking
a
about it?
16-year-old, a mom.
Yeah, your friends asking about it. You know friends that use it and stuff like that?
Of course.
Well, in public school, it's pretty.
And private school, they're popping bills. And
it's pretty common, but in my circle, no.
So those are the questions and conversations that I have with my girls. You know, my niece is 13 and my daughter is 11. Are, you know, well versed on exactly what it is and what I promote and what I do to make sure that they have the right narrative. So that way, when they're offered something, they're like, nah, I'm good. So they know what to choose. You want to try something, come on into the magic closet. Mommy has vape here. If you feel like you need to do that, I'd rather you come to me than do it with anybody else. When you're 18 and up, we can talk about it, you know?
So you have
to
be 18 and over in order to, because I remember I went onto your site.
You can prescribe for children. I personally don't prescribe for children, but you can.
How would the children consume this? Are they gummies? They're not smoking.
Tinctures. Under the tongue. Tinctures.
The drops.
The droplets, or rectally, depending on your age. If we're using it for seizures, you can do suppositories.
For your
bump. Remember, if you have a patient that's actively seizing in front of you and they're shaking nonstop and their jaw is clenched, I can't get anything in their mouth, and I don't have a shot form to give it to you. So the only hole that I can use is rectal. So it's a very common way to deliver medication.
And you give them the cannabis through their rectum, and it calms them down?
It helps to disseminate the seizures, depending on what type you have, of course, epilepsy and stuff like that. But it helps to mitigate the seizures.
I know it's not, I love my own show, but I love this show. The fact that I can learn, with Wellness Wednesday, may be one of my favorite. And I'm, you know, everyone thinks I'm a fashion girl, but this to me is important. And we're out of time.
People keep talking about vapes. Most vapes have nicotine in them. Nicotine is like,
well, you can put whatever you want in your
So you're talking about Juul. Yeah, you're talking about Juuls that have
which is affecting the lungs.
Which is affecting the lungs.
Nicotine is an addictive substance. Like, that's just not...
So vape is a technique. It's a technique that you use that combusts the oils that you heat up in there. So vaping, you can vape anything, just like Mom said. It can be hemp, it can be CBD, it can be nicotine. You know, you can kind of vape anything.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Lynn. You are so delightful, and just we got so much, and I hope the viewers watching, this was
I hope so. No, please, anytime, anything that you need, let me know. I love the dynamic between the both of you, and this was important for me to come on today. Thank you, Allie.
So
thank you, everyone.
People are asking, last question.
Does it help fight COVID? Guys, come on now.
Really, guys? You wish.
My perspective on it is CBD is an anti-inflammatory, and our goal is to decrease systemic inflammation, which helps to boost our immune system, which will ultimately help to fight COVID.
Oh my God!
So
okay.
Wait. This was my last question. I'm so sorry. Last question, I promise. How do you feel about the home remedies? Because the other day I had a little tickle, and I take a lemon ginger cayenne shot, and within the next day, like, I'm good.
Yes.
Absolutely. I do that before any prescription medication. Remember, I'm from Jamaica.
We're oregano girls. We're oregano girls.
Do everything DIY, home project, remedy,
so
rub a bath salt, tea,
like
everything.
Z-Pack. You're not that.
I am an integrative wellness holistic physician promoting that you do what you need to make sure you're well.
Dr. Lynn, we're gonna have to have you back. You were just so lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank
you so much. Thank you, Alanisa. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
I have to say thank you,
guys,
Alanisa, for producing the show, T-Boy Aficionado.
Thank you to our guests.
Thank you to our guests, Lauren from Baby Sugar. Oh, wait, hold on, let me get it right.
Sugar.
Spice Sugar.
And
I say Sugar Love.
And
oh, that was Lauren Pennington. That was our first guest. Oh, and Dr. Lynn.
For joining us on this episode of June and Summer and June, whatever you want to call it.
We will
see you this Friday for what's cooking in your closet, and the secret ingredient is
accessories.
All things jewelry,
hats,
necklaces,
shoes,
anklets,
glasses,
everything.
We want to see how you rock it.
And that is an episode.
Oh, and guys, follow the June and Summer Show. There'll be a wrap up of this episode on the June and Summer Show, but the full episode will be right here on demand.
On replay, send it to your friends if you want them to see this episode, if they missed it. We love you guys. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay blessed. And remember, COVID is still here, so please,
stay calm, stay safe.
Wear your masks. We love you.
Bye.
Bye.